Okay.
The queen has died.
Yeah, I love hear you talking, Eve. So it's great then when we just repeat what we just discussed. So anyway, welcome to today's Antelope meeting, 8th of September. We just had initial discussions about one item that we would like to cover once more in the recorded part, which is basically the RFP bidding policy discussion that we just had. So we just wanted to ensure that it's clear that obviously as being responsive for the funds of the chains, we will be clearly for any RFP that's being raised, we will be clearly negotiating and assuring that there is nobody taking advantage of a possible bidding coalitions. So maybe Eve, if you kind of want to reiterate on what you just mentioned.
Just go on my rant again.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's been very apparent because we've been publishing these calls now for months. It's very apparent that our responsibility is to our constituents for each of the chains. And just because we put an RFP out doesn't mean that we will accept. If it's a single bid, it doesn't mean that we won't, that we're just going to proceed, even if we've decided as a coalition that priority should be undertaken, if the terms that are being presented aren't favorable to both parties, right? So it's not to say that we will price gouge and we will ensure that, that we're incentivizing slave labor to a certain extent. Not at all, but we will also not, on the other side of the pendulum, decide to proceed with something that clearly is either overpriced and or out of budget, out of scope, whatever that may be. And the word of advice there is, if teams do, clearly band together, because this is the discussion we were having, whereby people bid single-handedly and then decide to get together and, in the backroom channels, drive the price up so that they each get at a minimal something. Then if ever that is deemed to be the case, you're simply shooting yourself in the foot, because then you may be barring yourselves from any other bid win in the future. And we will not, we will be very strong on that. I have no issues with being the bad cop on that front. These are relationships that we're forming.
Exactly. And to a couple of points within that, without recapturing everything I also said offline, you can see already that we are not just out to say yes to everything. We've already turned something down because it wasn't a good enough deal, and we will invite people to come back. This doesn't mean that we never want to see people work together, because sometimes there's actual synergies that grow out of that. We want to see those. We want to see things where it's better for everybody. If 1 + 1 makes 3 and somebody's comes together. So we're not precluding that, but we want to understand that synergy that you're bringing. We don't want it to be a collusion. And we're not dummies. We are responsible for the constituents that make up all our individual chains, and also the entire fundraising communities behind us, right? And even I, in working with teams, have already started working on. I've already tried to put together fairly standard rates that we will be expecting people to come with, and if people just come in and say, "Oh, well, yeah, sure, I'll hit the standard rates, but I'm going to do, I'm going to 5x the hours that you would normally get." We're not dummies. We're all developers. We are going to spot that, and we are going to be perfectly happy to say no to proposals if proposals aren't good. But we're looking to say yes, because that's what we're here to do. So I think quickly people will come to understand our position in terms of fiscal responsibility, in terms of really delivering for the community, and they will understand that this could be a very lucrative long-term client for any development group. But you can't treat us like we're just going to be rubber stamping stuff and don't know what things cost. It has to be a two-way street of respect. And if you do that, then there's a lot to be made, and we want to grow the ecosystem of developers who can work on this. That's a priority for us, but we're not going to be pushovers. And I think, we talked about that a bit. People should understand that's true, and then you'll work with us very well in the future.
Thanks. So I think that's becoming clear. Maybe Jeff, you want to give us a short update on the status of the currently running RFPs in that context?
Absolutely. So the Secure Smart Contract RFP, all of the proposals are due to us on the 16th. So that is just in flight. We do have the SDK RFP that there is a contract that has just gone through some minor revisions. Graymass responded today, said they still have some internal people to review, but it appears like the final revision looks good. So I would expect that contract to be signed in the next day or two, hopefully. So those are the two technical open ones. Obviously, Faster Finality is no longer an RFP. We'll be discussing that as a project. And then the other open RFP was the P2P, which was earlier mentioned, that the coalition decided that the value for the price wasn't quite there. So we're tabling that at this point.
Okay, so I just add this one here. I write was not seen reasonable is probably too harsh. That's due to my German language issue.
Not a right fit.
No,
Just not a right fit.
Yeah, right fit.
Two things, I guess, the Wallet SDK to circle and close the loop. Last week, we talked about how that funding and milestone disbursement would occur. We created an EOS account. The owner permission set is EOSIO.grants, and the active permission set is EOSIO plus.work.wg, basically this coalition. And so that we'll be able to, upon milestone completion, the coalition will be able to say yes or no, we're good with transferring the funds. However, if for some reason the coalition chooses no longer to meet, it disbands, whatever happens, then the ENF is also not stuck with the liability of paying that out, because the owner of that account would still be in our control as per EOSIO.grants. So that's done. That's completed. So what we would need to do then is transfer out of the current treasury into that specific account, which would still be in the control of the coalition, but earmarked for that specific contract.
And just for full transparency on that, I still have one of my keys as the owner until I get the complete thumbs up, in which I will remove myself, and then it will only be under the control of the permissions you just described.
Aaron is scared. He doesn't want to break the account.
He doesn't want to change the permission. That's the real.
But yes, it should be good. We could do a test transaction on it, certainly, before we move over, but it should be good.
Cool.
Let's do whatever, maybe Denis or something, we could put like a one EOS in or something like that, and then we could test it out.
Can do something, yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so want to move on for the agenda. Are there any topics that anybody would like to add to the agenda for today before we start with the in progress items?
I guess you moved P2P, but there was something else. Another team reached out for P2P. They saw that the bidding was closed. Essentially, they missed the bidding round, okay, and they seem to be perhaps interested. Jeff has been speaking to them. Whether or not we choose to reopen that, right now it's closed essentially. But there is another team that is Fudan University in Xiamen in China that seem to want to bid on this should it be reopened. I've never worked with them. It's a university. China has obviously universities throughout. There's thousands of universities, but typically Beijing is rated as #1, so Tsinghua or Beijing, Shanghai #2, and Fudan #3 in Xiamen. And so this is one of the top universities in China. There's a blockchain group that recently released, I think, an EOSIO prior to Antelope report and such. It's professors and students and whatnot, and they seem to be wanting to start developing on EOS again / Antelope again. And they reached out through Francis at Pizza Finance, saying that they would like to bid on this, but now it's closed. So it's up to us to determine whether or not we want to allow reopening that and restart this process, or we remain, we leave it closed for now.
Well, since it's still on the top 21 priority list as an item that we wanted to work on, I would propose to actually vote for this now if we want to reopen this and then allow them to submit their offer, if that makes sense. So what is your position on that, Yves?
I'm good with that. Essentially, they could bid. Doesn't mean that we accept the bid, but it would give us another bid.
Yes. Guillaume?
Yeah, I agree as well. I guess if we just extend the duration of we officially closed it, but we can just essentially say that we're extending it for a few more weeks and make another call to interested parties that would want to submit a bid. I'm okay with that.
We should communicate to OCI to close the loop with them.
Yeah.
In case they intend on rebidding, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
Lucas?
Makes sense.
Kirsten, Jesse's not here, and I don't know if he conveyed the vote. I would say I'm actually against it. I think it's better for us to say that we will revisit it in a quarter, and entirely because I think it helps us set these expectations for, if a good one doesn't come through, then are we just going to reopen it and people get another chance, or should there be some time that passes? That'd be my, we haven't had any discussion on this, so that's really more how I feel with a discussion. It's if everybody else feels strongly to do it and has voted that way, that's fine. I'm perfectly happy to be outvoted, and I still need to talk to you and Kirsten, you and Justin and Jesse. But if I were to vote today, I'd vote no if I had that vote. But also with the comfort of knowing that it's not, it doesn't matter, right? Like I'm not going to spend a lot of time arguing with you guys. That's my rationale. I think that's probably a good way to go, especially considering what we just have been discussing. And it really sort of, is like there's a risk of saying, oh, well, tough talk. But the first opportunity, you just reopened the bidding again. So
reopening the bid doesn't mean that the bidder wins again.
No, and
it actually may make the bids more competitive. But I also
the other, it's not just about price. Remember, I mean, bear in mind.
100%.
I mean, I think it's a good thing to encourage. I think it's nice to see someone we don't know turning up to do something, and I think that's a real positive. But on the other hand, it comes with a health warning in case they don't know what they're doing. And it's all a little bit academic. I mean, I don't know who they are, but I'm just saying, so the quality of the bid and price are kind of different things. So, but I think it does set a little bit of a bad precedent if you are going to say, guys, this is the deadline, and then you say, oh, actually, but in this case, I can kind of see why. I think there's a balance. We do need, one of the things we do need to do is to try and spread the net a little bit.
Yeah, and to one other point that goes along with that, the reason I'm defaulting to no as well, because, and again, I don't necessarily have our say, but this is what I would say inside our group as we decide. I would say no, just because we've bypassed the discussion phase and went straight to a vote, and And I just don't. I think I'm probably going to say no anytime we do that, to the extent that I have it. So we're having a little discussion now, but it's kind of ready, fire, aim to not talk about these things first. So that's why if I hold the TELOS thing, it's a no. But I also am from the safe position of you guys already having said yes and it not being consequential. So, but that's how I feel.
I have no issues with changing my vote if arguments are made, and then I'm okay. Yes, I guess Stephen says just in the chat, from an opportunity cost perspective. Hold on, it's too long. I need to actually extend the chat. We have the RFP already in existence, so no further overhead is required versus different priorities. We'd have to generate RFPs for. Yes, I think priority of the initiative should be big driver of whether we present reopen bids, though I know there was much discussion about reprioritization of initiatives. I'm actually okay with changing my vote to no, and because we are going through that reprioritization exercise in a month. So like this specific item, so it's bigger than this item, but this specific item, whether it's today or in a month, it's been pending for 4 years. Ultimately, doesn't really matter that much. Let's not kid ourselves. At the same time, I do like the argument that it does set the precedent that we just said no. There was a timeline. We opened it right after. Somebody missed the timeline. They might not be aware. Is there really any harm in moving it by a month or two and then reopening it in 2 months? Not really. At the same time, I also agree that, but we do have people that are interested in bidding on things. Well, we'll have other bids out. We'll have other items out. And so now we know this team exists and we can ensure that they're communicated with in the future so that there's other items of interest to them. Now we know that we've got somebody else out there.
Let me add two pieces of information that could help support that. First of all, talking to Francis, he's still, as of I think yesterday is the last I interacted on this topic. They're still not 100% sure that they can do the P2P bid. So they're not even definitely going to bid, even if we reopen it yet. They're still trying to figure that out. Second thing, he actually he looked at the top 20 that we had, and there's about half of them, I think more than half, that they said they would like to bid on if we did those, which in my mind emphasizes the reprioritization exercise first. Because if we like the idea that there's another team out there ready to get working, well, let's make sure we hand them what you guys think's really the most important.
Yeah, I think that having, I don't see the benefit in going right into a thing again. I would encourage everybody to say, hey, let's do what we say we're going to do. Let's walk the walk. Let's do that reprioritization process that's already on, and then we'll accept new bids based on that. And then, as an ancillary thing, it sounds like we're not going to miss these guys as potential long-term contributors. That's fine. We're not interested in one-off contributors anyway, really. So if we were going to lose them as a one-time chance, that's not a loss. And let's signal to people that, when these things are open, they're open, and they, and give us your real best offer, because it's going to be competitive, including, there's almost nothing on that anymore on that list that must be done. Like there's no existential stuff on that list for us now. We covered a lot of the biggies. So I'd encourage people to just consider
some stuff on there that are high priority. I think that the RAM limitations are on Lucas's mind quite a bit. And they've been so like that forever. I will change my vote to no, but I do want to very much emphasize that if I left it as a yes, I don't actually see that proceeding with this would not be bad either. I think that there are good arguments on both sides. I don't think one's bad, but I'm good with saying no. There are other items on there that we can reprioritize. I don't think there's much harm in waiting a couple of months to see whether or not that's indeed still on the top of the list. I'm good with that.
I'll do the same because if we're going to be reprioritizing next month, in that case, I'd be in favor of waiting for that next reprioritization phase, and then depending whether or not this RFP remains at the top of the priorities, we can certainly reopen it at that time.
Lucas, you also revise your vote then?
Yeah, I've been convinced to vote no.
Okay, so then I'll move
Douglas.
that item.
Douglas, you have a very unique skill set, my friend. When you start talking, it's.
What do you mean when he starts talking? He always talks.
I'm always talking. Lucas, I really appreciate that. I'm going to take that as a high compliment, and thank you. And thanks everybody to being open to ideas. I think this is another example of how we all work really well together, and how we have a synergy.
This was not scripted, by the way, for the people that are listening in. This is not planned. This is real time, live. This is what you're seeing.
Yeah, excellent. So it's good to see how strong-minded you all are and keep your positions, even if somebody starts talking. No, just kidding. It's great to see the dynamics. That's awesome. Okay, so moving forward, faster Finality IBC. Guillaume, you want to give us an update where you stand?
Yeah. So everything is progressing very well. Very happy with the progress. We're still waiting for Eric to finish his a final review of everything. We're not blocked or waiting on him to progress forward. It's just whenever he's got a little bit of free time, he can finish that review, and that will allow us to basically check milestone 2 and 3 from the list. There's been a slight changes. I think we've touched on last week, but nothing very consequential. It's just one of the issues that was raised was the size of the proofs under the previous model that we had would have scaled linearly in some occasions when we wanted to scale logarithmically. So essentially, we've addressed that. Everything that he's raised so far, we've addressed. So this morning, I just pushed the essentially like the updated version that takes care of all the things that he highlighted. So we're just waiting on him to perform that review. I also spoke this morning with the auditing team that will most likely be taking on the external audit mandate. They confirmed that they should be able to proceed by within 6 weeks. They should have should be able to complete that audit, so that essentially conforms to our timelines. So so far so good. Just there's another thing that I wanted to add to the agenda that's kind of related, and apologies, I forgot to mention it to Kirsten ahead of time, but there's going to be some decisions that we'll have to take in terms of the governance of the IBC contract as contracts, most especially with the wrap lock and wrap token contracts. So there's I guess like some like discussions to be had first, and then some decisions to be made in how the chains will essentially govern the access to these, and how we will essentially deploy it, and under which name, and what's going to be like, who's going to be responsible as owner and active permissions for these contracts. So that's just an agenda item to put in there. I think we'll probably require a few discussions. Even I were discussing this, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. And there's like when you start opening that can of worm, there's quite a few questions that need to be answered. And I don't think we have all the answers at this point, but we'll discuss this with the group and see what everyone thinks. And we're gonna just take a decision once everything has been discussed and people understand what's at stake and the consequences of like solution A versus solution B versus solution C. So yeah, whenever we can touch base on that today. We can put it on the agenda for next week. Just have to do it at some point.
Yeah. Do we have any immediate thoughts on this?
If we want to get into this discussion, we need to earmark quite a bit of time. Seeing as Lucas typically has to leave in 15 minutes, I would suggest that we actually either have a standalone discussion about this and then come back to the group with kind of some recommendations, or we earmark way more time than likely will be afforded today.
Yeah, I would love to have a separate discussion about it, because also the governance of the sidechain themselves is a topic that at some point we need to discuss. So a use case here is, for example, IBC is now available, and now we are making a decision that there are certain Web3 applications that are so busy and they have so many users that they warrant to have their own sidechain. And the governance of that is going to be probably the most difficult part, aside of just the technical one, because like who are the block producers, how are they compensated? If sidechain is, let's say, running a game, then do they have a say? For example, I mean, if are these block producers compensated in the mainnet token, or is that some other rewards that they're getting if this is a specific Web3 application with their own token?
I think this is, as everyone is identifying, this is a much more complex issue. I actually think that the best use of our time might be to have a separate work group to sort of think through some of these things, so we don't have to do that with everybody, and present a unified approach that we can see if it fits everybody's needs. That's what I would propose as a way forward.
Right. And I guess the final part of this is, I'm going to add to this bucket. Let's say a chain makes a decision, BPs make a decision that, hey guys, we need to have a side chain for a particular dApp. How do you compel them to actually, move or redeploy their smart contract to a side chain as opposed to operating on the mainnet in a decentralized world, right?
Well, for what it's worth, we've already built a model for an economic model for extending to sidechains, and the trick is you don't issue new sidechain tokens. That's the kiss of death. You have to maintain the utility in the mainnet token. But there's various ways of doing it. I'm not saying our way is the best way, but as part of the kind of when we thought about IBC and the kind of the rationale for sidechains, which is kind of not there isn't one size fits all, as we know. So
right,
you do need the ability to spin out subchains, side chains, whatever you want to call them, but you have to. Yeah, you just create the incentive model around it. Just kind of allows that flexibility, but kind of maintains utility in the mainnet token. And
I completely agree with you. It's just a use case that came up in our discussions. So
we see many use cases for this.
Yeah, my strong preference is that any sort of sidechain is the block producers of that sidechain are actually compensated in the mainnet token. But the use case came up if a sidechain is created for, let's say, an application like Alien World, and they have their own token, and they want to, can they compensate BPs in that token?
Well, they can. I mean, anyone can do anything they want. I mean, that's kind of the point. But that would be ancillary to a normal block producer fee. So a block producer can, there's a difference between the kind of protocol fee and the kind of like revenue token, if you like. So if Alien Worlds are taking probably not, if an entity decided that they needed a side chain because it needed to be configured in a certain way with maybe different number of BPs or different CPU characteristics, different RAM model, then there's we kind of put together a model that allows all of those things to occur. It deals with a kind of pro rata utility allocation of rewards from the mainnet. But then, in addition, it may be that those block producers maybe they're not voted, maybe they've got their own rules of being elected, or Alien Worlds themselves appoint various entities that mean something to Alien Worlds to be block producers on that particular chain. And how they pay them is how they pay them. That's kind of down to them. It's not the business of the protocol. But you can have a very sort of easy, fairly easy, because otherwise, and you want that type of incentive anyway, because otherwise you end up in a free for all. And I think the biggest, when I look at a lot, I won't mention them by name, but other layer ones that have kind of attempted to do either side chains or their own versions of IBC, they've all made fundamental errors in the economics, which meant actually all of the value, just no value accrues to the kind of the mainnet token by utility expansion. It actually just gets eroded away, and because they didn't give any thought to this particular issue.
Right.
So I think we have to accept that we cannot compel anyone to do anything. Like that's what the tools we can make a best practice path. And that's the kind of things that we should talk about in a work group, so we can bring those forward, because it is a bit of a tar
you can't
pit
compel
into it.
You don't need to compel. Exactly. That's the point. You underwrite the whole thing by incentives, and if people then choose to do something else, I mean, that's up to them. I mean, you can't, like you say, you can't make anyone do anything.
So just for me to understand, Guillaume, is this still kind of the scope that you originally wanted to discuss? My feeling is that we're spreading away from a little bit from what your thought was to a much larger discussion.
These are two important discussions. I consider them two discussions, but they're both important for sure. The first one regarding the let's call it like the interchain, inter-coalition chain IBC. That's the one I was raising, but there's also the let's say intra-chain sidechain model that is another discussion that we should also have. The second one, the sidechain, is a little bit out of scope for the coalition, I think, because it's more of a governance question that pertains to a specific chains model and how they want to govern themselves, how they want to incentivize their dApps or BPs or whatnot. So it doesn't like EOS is not necessarily bound by the decision that WAX takes on this side. However, when it comes to the like inter-coalition chains communication, then we kind of have to be a bit more in agreement in how we're going to proceed to ensure that everyone is on the same page. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the first one, the like Antelope Coalition IBC discussion, that's definitely something that we should be putting on the agenda, or as Douglas suggested, have another group that would tackle that question. And then for the sidechain models, happy to have a discussion with you guys at WAX about our proposal, and we're happy to also have the same discussion with the other chains if they're interested.
So it's basically those two topics: IBC fund governance and Antelope IBC sidechain setup / discussion, right?
Yeah. The first one I would just call it like Antelope IBC or Antelope Coalition IBC governance. Fund is, I don't know if that word is necessary, but yeah. And the second one is for the sidechain model. That one, like I said, I mean, we can have one call with everyone involved for the general overview and model. But I think ultimately the sidechain model might end up being slightly different from one chain to the next, depending on their own governance philosophy and priorities and so on and so forth. I would see some potential differences here and there between how different chains would want to tackle that one.
So who would be volunteering or be interested in leading those two initiatives?
Happy to do it.
So who would be part in that discussion? Douglas, you seem to volunteer from what I've heard from your discussion.
Well, I was trying to be real quiet. Yeah,
Failed.
I'm doing a lot right now, as we all are. But yes, if needed, I will join that. But I'm also happy to give Jesse or you, Kirsten, or Justin a chance to do that. But somebody from TELOS will do it, even if that means it's me.
I would love to be part of it too.
Likewise.
I mean, I think we have to have somebody from. We have to have a leader from each chain involved, right, for it to be meaningful. So yeah.
Okay, so Guillaume, would you be happy to organize that work group?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to you guys and we can schedule a time for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like this. Sometimes this Miro is messed up when trying to make line breaks. It opens new tickets. Interesting. So okay, so we had that discussion, and we'll move on with this. Then Scalability Plus. Before you leave, Lucas, you want to give us a short update?
Yeah, so I updated the blue paper, posted a link. I saw some edits being made, and they're accepted now. So I think it's, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's ready to go. I don't think there's some paragraph that's been removed, some changes were made, but I don't think there's anything else that needs to be done there, unless I'm mistaken. Jeff, I know you were looking at it. Is this at the completed state now, or is there anything else I need to do?
No, it's good. It's already in motion for the design, and it just
Zach. Yeah,
it just got shipped off for the translation today. So by the time the design comes back to translations, ready to get plugged in. So I still should be on track for late next week.
Cool.
So I think what you can do, Kirsten, is remove Lucas's name from the title, because I think what we're saying is his component's done, and we'll leave it open until we, finish the translations and distribution.
The one, it's not really an issue because we're not going to go through it. The branding kit we had from the blue papers, like my plan was for the cover to use Antelope branding. This will be the first Antelope paper, but all of the styling and branding within our Adobe InDesign is using a different typeface. So just wanted to, I think it's a small issue. I don't know if we've even settled our whole typeface thing in the group with Word, but just so you guys know, the font will be the same branded font that the ENF uses, if that's okay with everyone. But the cover and all of the text is all Antelope.
I think that's fine, Zach.
Yeah,
that's fine. We do have the pop-in font is off the shelf, so for the text can be used, but we can take that offline. But I think it would be fine.
Once I get the design back, I'll obviously, I didn't have the Poppins font, I don't think, but I'll do a font replace in Adobe InDesign, and if it doesn't like mess up all the spacing and visual components, then it should be fine.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything else, Lucas, that you wanted to cover for today or mention before you leave?
That's it for me, guys.
Okay, cool.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. For the Libre 1 system contracts, has there been any update here in regards of the status?
No, not yet. It is a priority inside of our sprint. We've just had a few things come up with a project that we're supporting right now, as well as just finalizing the release that's going out. We are discussing it on a more frequently than weekly basis, though. I think that where we're sitting right now, we're about to go out final with the EOS system contracts. And once that's been secured, we're going to feel really good about moving over this vanilla version, as we've asserted here, just because it should be pretty much copy paste from there, feeling really good about that finalized release. If I was to give an estimate, I'd say before next meeting here, I would guess we have this completed.
That was the next question. Thanks for answering.
You bet.
So that's very good. Thank you. Wallet SDK, there was an item for the definition and status reports and champions. I'm not sure if we actually discussed who the champions of the chains should be. I don't recall that. Did you have that kind of discussion last week?
We did not follow that all the way through. We were talking a lot about the contract structure. And also remember, at this point, the SDK contract is close to being signed. So some of these items, for example, definition of status reports, stand up, like really the whole project management structure, that will be a meeting that we set up with Graymass as soon as the contract's signed to say, let's set up, the weekly touch points, just like we do with every, other project that we've got.
Okay.
On that, actually, on that front of setting the weekly touch points, right now, we are, I guess we, the ENF is taking that on. It would be really good for somebody else to be able to help on that. That is a lot of time and effort on our end.
For the organizational structure in regards of project management support and follow-ups?
Yeah, essentially managing the priorities that then we've assigned and attributed a contract to. Typically, that would be, if we had staff inside of the Antelope, that would be Antelope doing that, right? That would be the staff that worked for the foundation that would be doing that. It wouldn't be the ENF, it wouldn't be TELOS, WAX, or UX. Right now, we're picking that up, but it's significant time and effort to do. So I don't know how we want to distribute that. I don't know if we want to compensate that. Ideally, it's not even about compensation. It's the non-fungible time of people that it is taking.
I would say, Kirsten, let's try to find some resource inside the TELOS core devs that can assist with that. It might not be any of the four of us, but it's not fair that ENF, for us to expect ENF to do everything. That's not what this is about. So I would say let's try to have the TCD find some resource to at least contribute to that, if you can help with that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we've been discussing this in our project management meeting this week, as we think that the resource that we have on the ENF side and part of what I am contributing here, we could also try to extend that to kind of be part of some of those projects and be like a service that's offered to those units that don't have own project management resources. So, but like for TELOS, it's we had a little bit of a backdraw in regard of resources that we hired. So I was hoping to have more resource myself to do other things, which it turns out I won't have at the moment. So, but we can definitely discuss how we can move forward with this. So we try to find a way for that.
Part of it is, so it's not so much that the team that won the bid doesn't have the project management resources. They need to have that as well. But it's the Antelope now essentially has a product that it is managing, or a project that it is managing, right? And Jeff, maybe you want to comment. I'm guessing that it's not just one person on our side. There are a few people as well. So if we could somehow create structure where there's a few people and just their shared resources, whatever it may be, but that there's more than just one person.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things
understood.
And so it may be, Kirsten, that the function either you or somebody else provides actually just complements the other 3 people that are there doing that function type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, Kirsten, one of the things that we're doing, like anyway, for our own ENF projects is we're creating more of a boilerplate template so that when a project comes along, here's how statuses are reported. Here's how issues and risks are evaluated. Here's the typical things, right? You and I have had these conversations as well, but what we would like to do is when these projects come in, we go over that with the winner of the project. Their project management team just needs to supply this, but what our team needs to do is validate that it's not just words on a paper, that there's real content behind it, and in particular, this is just something that's in my style I emphasize, but highlighting issues and risk and potential problems, because nobody cares when everything's going well. But if you surprise the leaders of these chains with, oops, we're falling off track and we've known about this for 2 months, but we didn't bother to tell anybody, that's when projects get into trouble. So that's what we're trying to do is be that conduit from the project teams to be able to escalate all of these things early so that they're not, nobody gets mad at them. Bad things happen. If you escalate early, then we can have a discussion about it. When you escalate late, that's when you get yourself into trouble as a project team, because you were trying to hide something that you knew was probably going to go bad, and then it burned you.
Yeah. And I totally agree that, we need to have these resources as Antelope resources and have like a project management counterpart on our side that is following up those things. You guys have been reading all those RFPs, creating all those RFPs. We are going to read all the documents, do all the vendor evaluation, and we obviously need to follow up on the targets and milestones, because it's a lot of money we're talking about. So we need to have this kind of resource, which I totally agree. We should broaden that from ENF to the other chains. So we will discuss that with TC on the TCD side. What more we can add to contribute to this. I'm not sure if Guillaume or Wax have resources that could also be used on this instance, but I totally recognize that we need to find a solution for this.
I
think we'll be able to contribute at least 1 or 2 people to help on the technical review of that stuff. We do have people that worked with like the previous, I guess, standards, transit and UAL and that kind of stuff, and that are also familiar with some of the work that GreyMass has been doing with ESR and other things of the sort. So I think we should be able to contribute there for the technical review.
That's great. That's what I was hoping to hear. I didn't necessarily know what resources we would actually have to do, but the way I heard Eve's question was a very nice way of phrasing it, when the reality is we're in a coalition. We have to step up. We have to, whether or not it's super convenient right now, or we're overloaded with free resources, which none of us are. We have to do it anyway, because that's how, there's a number of these things where, I have great respect for Eve and the whole ENF team. And you guys have to get, part of the benefit of a coalition to you guys is that other people do some work. So I think we, as each chain, and EOS is already doing this, each chain needs to figure out, first make the commitment to step up and do our share, and then figure out how to do that within our organizations. And of course, just to state what I think most people know, you need the client needs their own project management team, right? It's a different form of project management, but both the client and the vendor need their own teams. So we have to do this, and so let's do so.
Okay, so we'll discuss further steps in our next meeting, Jeff. How we kind of set up. Guillaume, it would be great if you could kind of DM me who you got in mind for this, so we could probably bring them into these regular project management meetings and then discuss on the topics to cover and tasks to be done.
Will do.
Excellent. And I'll take that for the TCD to discuss what we can do to offer additional extended support for this. And then I will also contact Lucas because obviously WAX is one of the changes that's probably they have second most resources next to ENF in this coalition. So would really be good if not only the small chains try to assess these topics. But I will approach Lucas for this. Okay. We discussed the Secure Smart Contract Library RFP, documentation Antelope work group. We tried to organize a meeting for the 5th of September, which turned out was a public holiday in US and Canada, so it wasn't very easy to kind of get people to attend to that meeting. So we need to kind of reschedule and find a slot to have the first meeting for the documentation part. As to the reprioritization of top 21 items, Jeff, you had some thoughts about the actual amount of top 21 items, and then we also wanted to discuss the process which we should be starting now on reprioritization of the items. So maybe you want to give us an insight on that.
Well, this was just kind of a brainstorm, but I think we collectively talked about this for several meetings, that having 20 items prioritized was a really long list. And it created more work because then we'd have to think through in enough detail. And so maybe if for the next go round, we'd cut that in half. Let's just try to, 10 items from each chain should be able to give us a decent enough list where the reality is the top 3 to 5, we'd have good alignment. And the bottom ones, there might be a lot more variance, but that's okay because we're not going to be able to work on items 6 through 8. Eve, I think you have an idea.
Well, you kind of just said it. We're not going to be able to work on items 6 through 8. I would suggest that instead of 10, we either do 6 or 8. We actually reduce even a smaller number.
Okay.
Recognizing that it's not that it's a wasted work if we do more, but we are quite limited in resources. I would rather focus on a smaller amount. It'll be somewhat easier to prioritize in that sense. And then we can have a stronger, let's say, output or stronger. Basically hit the targets a little bit higher if we have a lower amount. And it might be harder to dwindle it down, but then when we do dwindle it down, the overlap of prioritization is probably higher if we only had 6, let's say.
Right. Our challenge moving forward is different than our challenge was when we set this up. There were a wide number of things we had to see where everybody stood. Now we're a working coalition. We're accomplishing things. We're looking to stream. We know who's contributing and everyone here is contributing, and we can better manage a shorter list, I think. And one thing I might suggest, because last time, and we've discussed this as well, last time we just had some titles for a few of them, so it made it difficult. Each chain should take responsibility to make sure that what they think are their top 5 or 6 has at least the executive brief written up in that folder, so that when we start voting and putting them all on the list, the ones you think are important, everybody else will have enough detail to read through, and it might make it
better. So we might end up writing briefs for like 8 or 9 of them, but at least we'll have enough information on that. That's just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, we talked about that briefly in the last meeting, and I think what we came up with, which was good, is that there are descriptions for most of the things that are probably going to be our top 10 right now. I think almost everything. If anyone wants to bring something new in then there should be a process. They should come in with that executive description of what it is. It doesn't mean we'll all agree to that. There may be some discussion around refining of that is, but then we all have a common understanding of what exactly we are voting on and prioritizing. So we benefited from the ENF doing a lot of those things beforehand. It's not a small amount of work. So basically, if something is important enough to you that you think it should be on that list, then it's important to write up an executive brief.
Yeah. So one of the ones missing is the Block Explorer one, which I unfortunately had no chance to start writing with on. So, but the assumption is because we generally said we want to start this process September 8th, which is basically today. So the proposal would be that we set a time frame for like 2 to 3 weeks for all chains to bring up and those that are not belonging to the chains but are our external partners like Aaron and Gramers, and bring up those proposals within the coming 2 to 3 weeks and have those executive summaries drafted. So we have a point for discussion, if that makes sense.
So I would say make it 2 weeks instead of 3. And here's just my thought is, in the back of my mind, I know we have a couple companies. Why Not was an example. We've got the University Coalition. Like, these people are hungry for work. And I would hate to delay them and have them lose interest because we're doing internal discussions and bureaucracy. But if people think 2 weeks is not enough, obviously that pushes it out more. But that's why I'm saying 2 weeks should be enough for the teams to go come up with just 6 items and make sure the executive briefs are written for those 6 items. Considering probably 4 or 5 of those are already written.
Yeah, I would assume that this out of the 6 to 10, many are within the 21 that already were on the priority list anyway. So it's probably some that will be added. Like we had that, like IBC infrastructure and usability. We had a general usability blue paper that Aaron also mentioned, web wallet, web authenticator, downloadable authenticators, Block Explorer, all those things that were not on the list that we wanted to add to. So probably each chain will have like 1 or 2 items that were not on the list as of today. So I think 2 weeks is more than reasonable from my personal perspective. Thoughts, Guillaume? What do you think?
No, I think it's very reasonable. 2 weeks is good.
Eve?
If we're coming up with, I think we're talking about way too many new things we're thinking about coming up with anyway. Like if we're really like saying, hey, we're going to pick our 6 or 8 priorities, and 7, 5 or 7 of those aren't already in our top 21, then something ain't right.
Makes sense. Yeah. So then that seems to be fine. Okay, so then we start this process, and I'll inform Lucas about that.
And do we agree on a number? Because I see that it's still 6 to 10.
I say 8.
I'm good with 8.
Between 6 and 10. It's a single digit, and it's a even multiple of how many chains we have.
And
For
it's
all
a
these
lucky
reasons.
number.
But it's not a prime
That's
number. Though.
true.
I think should do 7.
It's not a prime number.
No.
I do like
I
my primes.
prime numbers. I love prime numbers. I just touched my heart there, Guillaume. You just touched it.
I know.
Oh God. This is getting into the wrong direction. So let's keep this. My proposal. Let's keep 6 to 10, and let's come up with like how the priorities really are. And if we end up with 9, which might be a lucky number in some countries of this world, or somewhere in the universe, then it might be 9. But I think it's not really necessary at this moment, my personal opinion, to define the number for this exercise.
Just so it's not 4. Very unlucky, and also not prime.
Well, what was the answer to the question of all things in 42. The universe? Was that 42?
42.
So,
42.
Yeah, that's too much. Too many priorities. Sorry, that's
Way
not
too
happening.
So it shouldn't be 42. So let's look at the number between 6 and 10 and see where we go. I mean, the voting will be probably, we can see that then. Okay. But it should not be more than 10. It's like anybody know the holy hand grenade from Monty Python?
3 shall be the count, and the count shall be 3. Yeah.
Yes. Right out.
Yes.
I don't even think it should be 10. I think we can narrow ourselves to a single digit.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Single digit number.
I agree.
6 to 9, and we don't have to refine it any more than that because we frankly don't know what they all are. But is that okay? Can you live with that, Kirsten? Because 9 is also a very interesting number.
I would say not give a range. Just pick a number, like 6 or 8, or just one number, not a range.
That's what I tried. It's the same thing, by the way, because you say, okay, it's 8 or it's 7 because we like primes, whatever. And you say it, and then you still down the road, if there's some really strong reason that we either don't need that many or we need one more and there's no split in that atom, then we'll do that. So we're spending way too much time.
Yeah. Isn't that a great coalition that we can also have fun together? So I think let's move forward. Future process resources for RFP creation. I'm not sure. Was there any progress last week on that item? I mean, we put it on August 18th anyway. So, which is 1 month ago, nearly. So did we move forward with this in any way?
No, but I think the voting process will actually start that in practice, because the description that starts the idea of an RFP, then when we vote and we actually get to the point of saying, hey, let's write one up, that's when this becomes a tactical need, and then we can discuss who's going to execute it at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll kind of schedule it for the moment when we have the new 1-digit priority set up. Okay. So we have this maintenance cost and resource discussion. Did we go any further with that? I think this is nothing we should be discussing today, because we don't have enough time and Lucas is no longer there. So
but there's no real answer to this. It's more so just to keep it top of mind, just like we had the discussion earlier with resources about project management and stuff, just to not forget it.
Okay, so you're fine when I move it to the backlog for now?
As long as it's still on the screen every week when we have these meetings.
Yeah, hold on, wait. It's
let's put it on the back.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have one other short question of new business, if possible. Okay, I'm going to accept that it is rather than wait. So there's a new chain, Antelope chain coming out called Bitcoin Libra. I'm sure it's crossed your, mind. You've seen some link of it, maybe if not much. I have been, engaged with some of those guys and talked with some of those guys, and I wonder if we do we want, when new things come up and it looks like they might, Ben Seidman is behind it. Do we want to engage with those? Do we? And like I've been reaching out to them, and my thing is, you guys should look into joining officially and contributing and being part of it. It's not going to be a tech heavy chain, although they do have some kind of connection to the Lightning Network. But what, as new things come up and look like they're going to be real, do we want to engage with them? Do we want to just tell them that we're here to engage with that they want, or do we feel like organizations are probably going to have to get a couple of years under their belt before it's really worth engaging with them anyway? I just kind of wanted to get a straw poll of people's thoughts on that, just before I put any more.
It's a single service thing, isn't it? It just wraps Bitcoin, as far as I understand.
I think that is what they are seeking right now, is my understanding. And I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's a gimmick. I don't know. Like I put a toe in the water just to find that out, right? To see, to give them some point out some things that I thought could be helpful and see if they're responsive. And so far they have been responsive, so that's a good sign. And I think we all know Ben is a pretty smart guy, even though we haven't been maybe seeing as much of him lately.
I mean, I don't have a view on like an engagement or kind of technology discussions or anything like that. I mean, I think it's absolutely fine, but I always my only kind of, I think from a kind of, and I'm not sure if even if this is the question, but from a kind of coalition perspective, I think these kind of single service, a bit like the OR chain, and there's a couple of others, they're using EOSIO, but they don't really, they don't have the same vested interest in a broad, layer one offering as perhaps the central members of the coalition. But there's again nothing wrong with IP swapping or trying to looking for mutual value. That's for sure.
Yeah, the thing, and then that makes a lot of sense. I'm asking because I really want to know. Not because I have any axe to grind. I don't want to spend time on it if it's not good, but to me, it seems like everybody else in the ecosystem, we really bent over backwards, and I feel reached out and really tried to get people on to at least one or two meetings, including even Block One. Like that's that extent, which I wasn't excited about, but I thought we had to do at least get a minute. So everyone else had the chance to say yay or nay on what we're trying to accomplish. But as new ones come in, they haven't done that. They may not really know about that. They may not, I'm just trying to see, like, do we have a welcome wagon for them? Do we say, hey, just so you know, this is what we're doing in case you want to get involved now or in the future? And I agree, like, as if they truly are a single use case, then there's much less likelihood. You raise a good point there.
I just think it's an open door. Yeah.
I guess my question is, if we extend this, so you mentioned, you start off by saying that we'd want them, or whether or not we'd want them to join as a formal partner. So if we do that, are we reopening the are we just saying for them, or are we just saying as a whole, by the way, the coalition is open for people to reapply, I guess, and to join the coalition potentially as partners? Here's what we're looking for, here are the terms, etc. Or are you specifically saying just for them? I would say if we are open to opening for them, I would say, why would we be opening to others, I guess?
I don't know that we aren't. I mean, my understanding is that one of our pillars is openness and inclusion, and that we are open to others, but they've already made the choice not to. So if anything, and everything we do is very transparent. So people who have already been in the space and have been involved and have made the choice not to, I don't think that I don't see them as closed off from joining, but they know what they have to do, and they know, there's been engagement there.
But do they? Because since we formed as a coalition, we actually haven't said, here are the like, if you want to join in the future, here are the criteria, here's how much it's going to cost, here's the process. We actually haven't done that.
Yeah, but it's not worth our time to do that now, because it's been a very recent decision that they made. Nothing tangibly has really changed, and they all know how to reach us, right? So if somebody goes, oh, we thought about, and now we love what you're doing and we really want to be part of it, that's fine. It's a small community. They know how to get in touch with one of us. I think that it was a very clear decision by everybody what didn't value that, and so any changes come through to them. I don't know that we're closed to membership. I don't think we are, but everybody else knows what it is. New people, they just don't know. And Libra, it seems like it is a smaller single-use thing, but single-purpose chain. But it's the first time it really raises the question: hey, here's another chain coming out in the EOSIO space. God damn it, in the Antelope space, we how they haven't had a chance to be involved. They may not know. How do we reach out to them, if at all? I think we should, in some way, even just saying, hey, here's kind of what it is, and if you're interested, I think there should be some kind of welcome wagon. And I don't think that we need to, until somebody actually expresses interest, we don't necessarily have to go in and say, well, okay, here's the process, because that's going to take time we don't have right now, unless somebody is seriously interested. But we don't even know that.
The current call that we're in has 35 invitations. I have no opposition to just sending them the invitation for this. Nobody joins other than the 4 members, but they could potentially join here, listening in.
And Aaron.
Sorry, out of the 35, the original other chains that ended up not joining are still on the invite. Technically, they could show up tomorrow if they wanted, or they could have shown up today if they wanted to.
But they're not going to. They made their choice, right? The other guys aren't on the invite. Do we that's the thing. It's not supposed to be. It didn't mean this to be a huge thing. It's like, do we reach out to them at all? Do we have any kind of light, engagement, or do we just have a blurb at the bottom of the website that says, hey, if you guys want to join us, contact us and we'll talk about it? This is not going to come up a lot, but
I'm okay with that. There are a few that we added as time went by. I forget the name. There was another, and then we could add them in the public channel, the larger channel, and the name is escaping me. But there's another chain that reached out very similar to that, and they ultimately never. Ultra. No, it was somebody else help me out here. What's his name? No. The name is escaping me, but we add them in the channel. They're in the call invite. They just didn't show up, so we can do the same thing. Should at some point they be interested in formally joining, then yes, we would have to have that discussion at that time of what does that mean, cost-wise, membership-wise, governance-wise. We'd have to re-engage in that. And so at that point, then we should also be cognizant, in my opinion, that if we do that, it should be also something for others. Should somebody who declined originally want to come back, we might want to have that discussion again at that time as well.
Yeah, but
sure.
If I may interrupt here, because we know, everybody knows we are open to this discussion. We had this discussion several times in our calls. It's open to public, so everybody knows that we're open for discussions. Nobody approached us so far. Also, the new chain didn't approach us so far. So I think we should go back to our topics that we would like to discuss here on the call. And if that case comes up and we really need to discuss it, we should bring it up again. So I think we're open. Everybody knows that, and nobody has been raising interest so far. So I don't think there's much requirement to discuss this further.
I agree. Thanks for considering it.
In the chat, there's one thing that was added. I was made aware, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, that Chintai felt they never received an invite. I don't agree.
They did.
I'm looking at the
I
invite
sent
right
invite
now,
myself.
and Chintai is on the invite, and they just never joined. I am meeting David in Singapore in 2 weeks. But just to set the record straight, they literally are on the invite. I'm looking at it right now. Now, if you as the CTO didn't tell your CEO, that is not on me, that is on you, I apologize. But Chintai was very much invited. It was brought up in the channels a few weeks back. They've been invited. They were one of the first people that were invited. They've been there from the beginning. I think we're talking about January, February. It's been quite some time.
We made this group and everybody involved made a real effort to bring in every possible we went out to apps like Ava. We went out to Block Bullish. No one should be of the mind that we didn't have an exhaustive invitation to people and outreach, like active outreach to people. So that's just not factual.
Yeah, and I think we should leave it with that. I wanted to cover this one here, development onboarding. Guillaume, I did establish contact to our Nathan. I'm not sure if you had a chance to discuss with him. Is there any status update on this item here?
Yeah, no, I'm aware. I didn't contact Nathan yet, but we do have a bit of I guess like an initial discussion that took place. I think like was it 10 days ago with Ted and Stefan regarding this topic. So there's still a few I guess like considerations to be taken into account. Mostly around the availability of resources. However, I think it's still something that needs to be pushed forward. So maybe I'll talk to Nathan on your end, and I'll also discuss again with Stefan to see if we can move that thing forward.
Yeah, maybe the real how he called him the real Nathan. So maybe the EOS Nathan would also like to participate in that kind of discussion. Nathan James.
Yeah, would be a good idea. Yeah.
Nathan James is, if anyone's the real Nathan, it's Nathan James. Although,
yeah, I agreed with him that
Nathan Duff is great. He's no NS James.
Yeah, especially in the discussions that we have with our Nathan, we agreed that he's the real Nathan. So, but apart from that, that's great. So we started that discussion. That's good. Then to the priority items here, has there been any update on the marketing side here, especially on discussions about website development and so on? Justin is not here, so I'm not sure who was part of that discussion lately. Douglas, maybe you?
Now you want me to talk? I don't think a lot. So not a lot has seemed to have happened in the last last week or 2 weeks with Word, with that kind of marketing. I think that we are setting up meetings, but that's mostly wound down. I think it's down. I look at it as we're down to the delivery of things that they need, and that doesn't mean that Eve and I and Aaron and Justin all have to get on a call, So in terms of what we were talking about last week, I think where along this similar theme, there was a request from ENF that other participants join in a little bit more in actually pushing stuff out. I don't know any. I don't think there have been any meetings around that. I don't think that's like a work group thing. I think that's more of a just, hey, we'd be more aware of that. So I don't think there's been any actions that I'm aware of that have happened on that. But
Patty, yeah, Patty.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was disconnected back on my phone.
Okay. Yeah, because that's great that you just returned. Thank you, Douglas. I think it's more related to like website too, where there was some discussion about like WordPress budgets and working on the next structure or the improved and evolved structure of the website, and also like the branding discussions. So not sure.
Last week we did
Yeah,
take
I'm not
a
involved
vote.
in those.
Last week, Kirsten, we did take a vote on the website. It was approved.
Yes.
I think the budget was something like $2,100 or $2,200. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so. Are you
correct.
just asking for an update, Kirsten? Because I also saw kind of two discussions there, and I was kind of lost as to which one we're having.
Yeah, and I was discussing about this, like the next steps for branding, and if everything is in kind of in flow there.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised that you called on me, because I'm not involved in that. But
okay, I thought you were in those meetings.
So
yeah,
sorry,
no.
I can give you guys a quick update on that. We did move forward with it. We met with the double up team, and we'll have transitioned over to WordPress for probably early next week in the pages. So the first stage will be done early next week. I think there's a longer term question with longer term, what we want to do to redesign the site or how deep it is and the strategy there. But for right now, we just wanted to get it to a place where we've got it cleaned up and designed in a proper template where we have shared access, and we'll have it on WordPress. So that is underway and moving forward.
Awesome. And then Ted, you wanted we discussed WordPress a while ago, and you wanted to discuss with Sebastian if we kind of add this to the WordProof environment and have everything kind of logged on the blockchain.
That's very easy to do. Zach did that while we were on a call one time in like 35 seconds. So it's really easy to do.
Okay.
Once we get the WordPress up. Easy
cool,
for
excellent.
Zach, I should say.
Yeah,
there is one item that we need to close the loop on with Word is actually the finalization of payment. So that maybe, Kirsten, if you want to double check with Justin, whether or not the Word contract is now complete and whether or not we release the final payment. I don't believe we have.
I think they still have some deliverables still, like that don't require input from us, but just require work product from them.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, correct. It's the brand guidelines, which we should be getting really soon, but that's the outstanding work.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so we can follow up next call if that's been delivered, and then payments should be effective. Okay, so we can move this over there. Is there anything from the media side, Brandon, you want to share or you need input on? Or Patty, not sure who's taking over these tasks these days.
Yeah, I think we're just kind of now in a nebulous spot where we're, working on the blog redesign and trying to figure out where the next update gets posted to. I don't know if Patty wanted to address some of the issues we talked about on the previous Antelope GTM call we had.
Yeah, sorry about that. Like my phone just died, or my computer just died right when we were talking about this topic. So outside of the WordPress, one of the things that we're switching over the site we talked about is just making sure that we had some refreshed content. So there's at least some engagement or a level of engagement that we're showing on the site. And one of the ideas or proposals that we wanted to bring back is, a shared responsibility to create content across the coalition. So with selecting a few topics and having a cadence of every other week or something like that, we can talk through the cadence, but where each of the coalition members could contribute some blog or some kind of article that could be posted on the site. So it could maintain some level of freshness and a level of thought leadership that we'd want to demonstrate. So again, in terms of work, but we think it's just important to show that level of engagement from now through the end of the year. So that was the proposal. We can give more details around that. I think Justin's not on, but we did also identify a few topics to suggest to the coalition, and that would also help to bring to life, the reason why you're part of the coalition and what you think is important as we move forward. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts there. Again, it would be, something that the team member, one of the team members in the coalition, we could work with, or can just join that go-to-market group and can contribute more into that process.
So I personally, and as extension on behalf of TELOS, I anticipate being a big contributor of that, but right now I've got a lot of other things ahead of me. So I think you can count on some writings and videos and stuff like me that you've already seen, but this isn't the time I can take that on as a big role, for the next couple of weeks at least. But long term, yes, for me.
Yeah, and it would likely be like once a month, right? There's 4 of us as part of this, so
yep.
Once a month having. So, the Twitter space that Douglas, that you were part of, I think that was a really great sign of that work that we can do together. So I think here again, a really light lift is what we're proposing to keep the momentum.
Sorry, when you say once a month, you mean once a month for Antelope as a whole, or once a month per chain, which actually means once every week is something that's going to be updated?
I'm sorry, it would be, we said every 2 weeks is the cadence. So it would be actually less than that, right? So there's 4 of us, so it would be once
every 2 months, give or take.
Exactly, yeah. So we're not asking much.
Yeah, I can commit to that for sure. And I want to, by the way, I think that those Twitter spaces, I think I've invited everybody to be on a Twitter space on Good Block's weekly Twitter space for next week, and everybody said, yeah, one person for each chain said, yeah, I think that'll be great. I think we should really try to do, like you said, light lifts, more of those things. There was some technical issues with the Twitter space we did that even I did. I think we should do another one. I mean, these are the ways that you really engage with people, and I think we should be doing some of that. One thing I would say is and this is related but slightly different. I'm a little backed up on those because I had proposed something between the 2 EVM teams that everybody was fine with, but Zach, you got to get back to me about that because I can't. Internally on TELOS, I can't be proposing new things for us to do until I deliver that one, and I think we were going to coordinate on that. So, not to call you out, but
yeah, I mean, part of it's the EVM where they're currently at and focused on kind of getting to the finish line, and the other one's just we're focused on our conferences and keynotes. We just got a lot going on. So to participate in it would be one thing, but to organize it is another animal. And that's just something that's kind of I guess fallen down the priority list at this time, at least for the month of September. but we could do it.
If you and I could, if you and I can just talk a little bit more. I got a couple of messages into you that I don't think I've heard back on. So if we can, then we don't have to take up any more time on this call. But and if it's not going to happen, that's fine. Then I can take that off the list and I can put up and I can propose other things in its stead.
Got it.
So before we move on, because I think there are other promotional ideas that we have kind of on the list, could I propose that the coalition commit to having this, we could provide some guidance on what we're looking at in terms, of 250, 500 word. We can talk about topics. We can provide some guidance on this already. But would like to just get the commitment that, we set a cadence of getting that information on the site.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to do that, then we need to have some kind of calendar, some kind of content calendar where we, even if it's just one thing every 2 weeks, somebody has to sign up for that. And right. Because otherwise it's just going to not happen. If we keep it nebulous, hey, we're looking for these things, no action will be taken, at least not in a consistent way. So need to have a calendar. Somebody's got to run it. Somebody's, and some.
Yeah, exactly. If it's every 2 weeks, I mean, sure, somebody is writing an article or doing something every 2 weeks, but somebody needs to post that. Somebody needs to coordinate that. That seems like a lot of work still. That seems like
1, 2, 3, not.
Yeah, I mean, it's really publishing on our WordPress. So
but somebody needs to coordinate that. Somebody needs to proofread it. Somebody needs to okay it. It needs to be brought to the rest of the people. I mean, every 2 weeks is still quite a lot. And then who's doing that? Are we? Is that the suggestion is that we're going to take this on? I'm not convinced that that's necessarily a priority.
No, so it wouldn't be. It would be coming out of the go-to-market team. So we have meetings that hopefully will be every 2 weeks, so we can look at the content calendar, kind of review, and then propose whoever's slotted. I don't think it would be a lot of work for the editing and publishing. I think it's really just the commitment of someone in each of the organizations to provide something that can be put into that process, and that's we can assign it, or and if it's too much, I think it really just then becomes, is everyone okay with not having that level of updates to the site? I mean, it just is sitting kind of static.
If I was going to Nostradamus this, I would say this is not something that's going to exist and thrive on a sort of like every chain takes its turn sort of way. Even if we start that, it's not going to go long. I think what's really more likely to happen is a few individuals are going to say, hey, this is worth doing and fits, my needs of wanting to, either be seen as a, strong player here or whatever, right? It's going to come down to a few people. I will do it because I do that stuff anyway. And I think, Patty or somebody, I don't know if I think more likely we're going to get a few contributors who do it, and others are going to not see the value of putting that time in, if I'm honest.
Yeah. And I guess that, and I think I agree. I think it would be the contributors, but I guess there's commitments coming from the coalition that they would find a contributor, or, we could help, but we're not going to be searching for those contributors, right? So
I think so. I don't think we need, it's an I see it as an opportunity. I see it as a chance to, as a technically smaller player here, to try and have a bigger voice, because I both personally and for TELOS, that both go the same thing. I want people to know that this is. It's important to me that people know that this is not really just the ENF and friends. Like, this is a coalition. There's a lot of reasons why I think it's valuable enough for me to put time in. But if people don't feel it's valuable for them, I don't want them to have a freaking term paper due, every couple of weeks. Like it's just, if people see the value of it, they should do it.
Wow.
I don't think this is where everyone needs to roll up their sleeves and commit in the same ways as project management and payment and things like that. I think this is a nice to have that people should see as an opportunity to get their vision.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the site will support it. And I guess, instead of the commitment, maybe it's, it's next week, there's an open slot, and then whoever would like to set up, we can manage it from that perspective. There'll be multiple parties that'll share the CMS. So the publishing is not, it's not restricted to one person. We'll have a process where, that we can create there. But if it's that approach in terms of building it, and then we can tee it up every other week here, and go through the cadence of for publishing dates, see who's got an item that they'd like to commit to, and if there isn't a topic or someone volunteering to step up, then we can make a collective decision that we'll forego that date and continue on. We can manage it that way as well.
I will do one. I'll commit to doing one a month. The thing is, and so I get that on the calendar. I don't want people to say though, oh wow, that Doug's trying to make it look like his role in this is much bigger than it actually is, or why is he always talking about TELOS? Because in the things I do, the way I interact with Antelope is about Antelope, but also about TELOS. Like we're all gonna highlight things that we're aware of, which are our own chains. And I don't want people to go, oh, he's trying to capture this, even though it's an opportunity. So I don't want it to become something where people feel a few people are monopolizing it. And believe it or not, I've been accused of monopolizing a conversation or two, but I do want to contribute, and I do think it's important. So, but I want to be cautious about hey, why don't we ever talk about wax? Well, because for example, because they don't choose to participate, right? That's the one sort of red flag I see with me, because it's not a problem for me to say I will write a 500 word article a month on this. That's nothing for me. So, but yeah. That's my concern. That's my area of concern. I'd like to be noted. Timestamp.
Is there anyone else that, any other thoughts? Eve, I hear what you're saying in terms of prioritization and commitment levels. And, we did talk about trying to make it as flexible and loose as possible, but to, have a purpose to keeping, the site. And it's not just the site, right? Because there's a voice that comes from the public, whatever is published there, and message that can be relayed across other channels as well. But I hear what you're saying. I didn't know if anyone else had any other thoughts to share.
To be, I guess, to put on record, I think we mentioned this 2 weeks or so ago. I have no objection with what Douglas mentioned. I don't. It's like on the record, I have no qualms with, for example, Douglas publishing a lot of content. And if people want to see that as Douglas does XYZ, I personally don't care. I think it just showcases that some people care about this, they see value in this, and so they show up, and that's important. I think that's what I would be focusing on. And if that means that Douglas picks this file up and does more than others, and this ends up being a lot of him and he ends up being the face, I'm okay with that. I think we need more people to actually show up and do the work. And then if that bothers others because they feel like they're not being represented, great, then show up and do the work as well. Like if this is important to you, show up. If it's not important to you, or if you've got other priorities, that's okay too. That's fine. I don't particularly have that issue. I would say a cadence of 2 weeks, to me personally, I think is a little too much. I'm not sure that we'd actually have content every 2 weeks. And it's not so much that there's content every 2 weeks as well. It's to prepare that content every 2 weeks is a couple of days of work. That means that you're, I don't know, for an FT, maybe it's 0.3 of an FT, 0.4 of an FT. And to me, that's a little too much prioritization on this. I'm not saying it's not important, but maybe 0.3, 0.4 of an FT is a little too much. I would say that something cadence of every month, I think is good. I think that that's really, that's plenty. And like we mentioned as well, it's not necessarily articles. We do Twitter spaces, we do interviews, we have mentions of Antelope. Just having the blog site up right now, the amount of times that Antelope gets mentioned currently, we'd likely be able to just put a press section and fill it out every week right now, probably at this point. And if we continue what we're doing, that section will probably be filled out on its own type of thing.
Right.
Anyways,
it
that's my
definitely
piece.
is on,
Like I don't think
on
the
our
site will remain that static, even if we don't proactively go out and do something right now. And the proactive things would be like the Twitter spaces, which as an example, and there's plenty to go around. And I don't really see that as an issue.
Okay, great. I mean, a lot of that I'm doing already, or me and my team are doing already with the Twitter spaces. I'll keep pushing. I'll keep inviting. Eve, I don't think there's any shortage of you appearing on these things. I just, there's a lot of things where it's you and me, and that's great. I think we've got an amazing dog and pony show for people. It really comes across great. I don't want anyone to have hard feelings if it's like, oh, it's the Doug and Eve show, because it's not. But if the faces you see, the people you see talking about it, it's just natural for it to come across that way. But all are welcome. I'm trying to get everybody in, but I'll commit to doing a lot of that, and you guys will probably be sick of me, and people will think that it's all about me. That's the risk.
It's all about Doug. Okay. So I think we've got good direction there, and we'll take that back to the team. And Justin, I know it's not on, but we'll make sure that we'll just bake that into whatever the plans are and going forward. Thanks.
You guys remember how many daily podcasts there were in the early days? Like everybody had a podcast. There's not as many right now. Maybe we need to see if we can start that thing back up again. Get some outside people excited about it. Again.
Suddenly gone very quiet. Do we have anything else on the agenda? I noticed that person turned off his camera.
Where am I?
Still here? Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, no, I think that's it for today. I mean, the only last thing I wanted to mention was the Antelope GitHub as verified org. That's a topic from last week, I think. Is there anything happening there?
So I actually was going to chime in and say I added that to the agenda just during this meeting since it came up in the core engineering's channel. They just said that it would be great to get it set up as verified. We've got it set up that way for the ENF. I think there's just a sense of pride and legitimacy around it. I don't know all the details or requirements for it, but I just said, sure, I'll add it on the agenda and see if we have time. So here we are.
Okay,
so do we have?
So probably we want to discuss that next week then, or is that an urgent topic anyway?
Do we even need
Definitely
to do anything?
Not urgent.
Well, if we're going to have anything official, then we have to have some kind of like who would we say is officially agreeing to that? I mean, do we do it based on a vote of the four chains? I mean, I think it's great. I think it would be good. I don't know exactly how like who we set for those organizations. Generally, they're looking to a person or something to, with a recognized title to come in and say, yes, this is official. I don't know if we are even capable of doing that from a technical matter. But I do think it'd be great to get the GitHub, blue check marked or whatever the thing is.
Yeah, there's
we
a good goal. I don't know how we do it.
What is the process, Stephen? Do we actually need to apply and then they approve?
That's the thing. I don't have those answers. I can work on getting those details for the next meeting, though. I just added this on last minute.
I'm guessing the barrier is pretty low because it's your own repo.
Yeah, I'd love to know, like, if you can come back next week with just those answers. But right now, I just don't have enough information to like.
And if there's a message that needs to be sent, we could also, because it does list the Twitter Antelope.io, it could also just be, if possible, the Twitter that just says, hey, this is our official repo. And that's the only message you need.
Yeah, no problem. I'm reading some details right now in their documentation, but I'll be prepared to discuss in next week's.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll keep that on the agenda for that. Excellent.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.
Likewise. Take care, everybody. See you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
And next week will be my last for 2 weeks, because then I'll be in South Korea and in Singapore.
Lucky you.
So just heads up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure about that.
Korea.
Sure about that. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well.